arrest for the defendant for that alleged assault. Had an ATF report of a third party who reported that the defendant was making threats concerning the arresting deputy, threats to the effect of, I'm going to shoot that guy and I'm going to blow his head off. The defendant is a flight risk, he is a danger, and so we're recommending detention so that he can be...
What's up, Mob Crew? I'm Chris. In today's video, we've got video playing of some new drone footage of the grain shed, also some video of where we were walking and searching where Dylan's last cell phone ping was. Also playing will be the audio of James Brenner's attorney and the prosecution. This is back in 2011 from some charges that he had in North Dakota. It's pretty interesting, so I hope you enjoy, and thank you so much. Also, today's missing person case is Aiden Clune. He was last seen on April 27th in Curry, Nevada. He'll be featured at the end of my video, so please stay until the end for that. Thank you so much.
Mr. Higgins, what is the government's position regarding the issue of detention?
Recommending detention, Your Honor, based on both prongs. Both the safety of the community and Mr. Brenner's presence at an initial appearance in the District of North Dakota, based upon the prongs of the bail reform act. With regard to danger to the community, Mr. Brenner is 48 years old. The court has received a copy of the pretrial services report. It can gather from that report that his record in the last 12 years is insignificant. There's virtually nothing there. The felonies which form the predicate for the felon in possession charge occurred in 1986 and 1990 respectively. And if the court were to examine those, the court could see that the 1986 charge starts off with a very ominous sounding assault with intent to commit murder. But that quickly gets malprossed. What Mr. Brenner ultimately is convicted of is a malicious injury, for which he receives 5 years before they were suspended, which does nothing by way of a defense to the charge, but should give the court some insight to the gravity. The court can also see that one of the charges was use of an antique firearm in the commission of a crime, giving the court also some idea as to what was going on there. If the court also looks at the next felony, which is a felon in possession from 1990, the court can see that all the prison time in that case was suspended. He received 2 years, a suspended sentence from there. So it's fair to say that the felonies which underlie Mr. Brenner's conviction are of questionable seriousness, and that there is nothing on his record with the exception of a DUI in 2002. He gets one arrest in August of this year, but that appears to be have been dismissed for whatever reason, the Dunn County State's Attorney's Office. The court could see clearly also from the indictment that the firearms that Mr. Brenner is accused of possessing are not your standard fare assault rifle or automatic weapon. I mean, they are, from the looks of the list, largely hunting weapons. I mean, there's a couple rifles, there's some shotguns. These are not your typical game guns or whatever. They're like hunting weapons, like one might find in rural North Dakota, which is where Mr. Brenner's from. In terms of flight risk, obviously anytime the court has a Rule 5 hearing, there's a question, why is Mr. Brenner in our district as opposed to the district in which is being prosecuted? I offer the following by way of a brief timeline. A search warrant is executed in June where these guns are found. Mr. Brenner engages then in a phone call exchange with an agent Birkenhagen of the ATF. He's in constant contact with them. They interview him. He is in communication with law enforcement. A subsequent search of his camper, from what I understand, reveals a job application to Wessel's Harvesting, which is where Mr. Brenner was working at the time he was arrested. And Wessel's Harvesting was working in Alma, Nebraska, which is where they found Mr. Brenner. Interestingly, as the court could see from the arrest warrant, which is document number 1, and the indictment, which is number 2, the arrest warrant and the indictment issue on October 27th. As the court could see from the emails that I've tendered to it, Mr. Brenner contacted the Dunn County Sheriff, Don Rockvoy, on the day before that, touching base, seeing what the status of his case was. According to Mr. Brenner, Mr. Rockvoy said, I don't have anything to do with your case, you need to call the state's attorney. So the day after the arrest warrant issues, on October 28th, Mr. Brenner contacts Ross Sundin, who is the state's attorney in North Dakota. And an email that I tendered to the court to me from Mr. Sundin confirms that he did in fact call Mr. Sundin the day after the arrest warrant was issued. All this time, Mr. Brenner is working a grain cart 14 hours a day in Alma. He is, as the court could see from the fact that a job application was found, this was a planned in advance employment opportunity. It wasn't like he just split. This was an opportunity for him to get some work. His whereabouts, from what it sounds like, were never unknown. He's making contact with the sheriff, making contact with the prosecutors up there, and letting his whereabouts be generally known. Mr. Brenner informs me that he owns a truck which is located in Alma, that he will have no difficulty making it back to North Dakota. The court could see from the pretrial services report that he owns real property in North Dakota in the form of a 6-acre plot and a 2-acre plot, one of which his camper sits upon. He knows people in North Dakota. He has lived in North Dakota now for 11 years. He has no family anywhere else to speak of, but he has some friends in North Dakota. I think the court can gather from his record that there is no indication that he has any intent to flee anywhere else. Based upon the fact the entire time between June and his arrest, he's checking in with law enforcement at all levels of government. I think that evidence is an intent by Mr. Brenner to get this issue resolved, and I don't think there's a significant danger to the community. For these reasons, I think that there is sufficient evidence that Mr. Brenner is not a flight risk, and sufficient evidence that the court can reasonably guarantee the safety of the community. And I don't believe that the government has met its burden to the contrary.
Mr. Higgins?
Several items, Judge, some of which is proper. I've reviewed emails that Mr. McWilliams provided. I assume that I'm certain that they're the same copies the court has. There's no indication that Mr. Brenner was letting anybody know his whereabouts, first off. Second is that he's got a lengthy history of criminal behavior that includes guns and violence. He's a dangerous individual. He's got an active warrant out of Maryland. Apparently they don't extradite except from adjoining jurisdictions. So he's got a history of failure to comply with court orders. In addition to that, Judge, the indictment here includes 15 firearms of a variety of types, including 5 handguns. Those are alleged to have been possessed by the defendant in 2 different time frames. One is in or before June, and the other is in or about September of 2011, additional firearms. In addition to that, I would proffer to the court that it's my information from the prosecutors in North Dakota that before the defendant left for Nebraska, he gave a shotgun and a handgun to a third party to hold for him until he got back. Reportedly about 2 weeks ago, the defendant went back to North Dakota and did take those 2 firearms. They have not been recovered. There was a search warrant of a camper that was associated with the defendant. The defendant reportedly had said he had 5 guns hidden there. Law enforcement recovered 4, so they're still looking for 1. This June 2011 assault you see reflected here is dismissed. I don't know the circumstances of the dismissal. I've got a report concerning that. The complaining party reported the defendant had struck him with, it's called a tire checking club, which apparently is a wooden item with a metal ring around it. In any event, after the date of that arrest for the defendant for that alleged assault, had an ATF report of a third party who reported that the defendant was making threats with concerning the arresting deputy, threats to the effect of, I'm going to shoot that guy and I'm going to blow his head off. The defendant is a flight risk. He is a danger, and so we're recommending detention so that he can be.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you'd like to support this channel, please consider donating or becoming a member. Today's missing person case is Aiden Clune, last seen on April 27th, 50 miles south of Wells, Nevada. Please take a close look. Please take care of yourself and be sure to tell someone you love them, and I love you all. Thank you.